Okay, we are live, but we got to let it breathe just for a moment and bring on the Facebook peeps, bring on the Instagram peeps. We'll get this party started. I've missed you guys. Hope you're all doing well. And we are almost. Come on, Facebook. Come on, baby. Come on, baby. I'm going for it. It'll click in. Are you seeing a circle still, Scott? Is it spinning for you? Welcome in, everybody. It's the Mile High Huddle podcast. I'm your host, Chad Jensen. With me is my fellow football priest, who you know, who you love, and who I'm sure you've missed. Back from vacation, took a week. Zack Kelberman, bro, what's good?
This feels so foreign, but so right at the same time, Chad. I've missed all of you, Scott. You are our community, talking Broncos football. So happy to be back tonight. And as some of the comments said, Chad, we're a week closer until Broncos training camp. And, I'm very thankful for that. It's been a slow grind.
Yeah, this last week or so in particular, and it's no, usually, Zack, I'm not a huge believer in coincidence, right? But in this case, I do think it was coincidental that the week that you took off, and it was, by the way, so this, what I'm about to say, good planning, also coincided with nothing happening, like zero whatsoever Broncos news. And you expect that, Zack, this deep into the NFL summer. What is it? 2 weeks left, really, Zack, and then it's Broncos training camp in earnest. Every day it's something else. It's going to be a gas.
It's a catch-22 though, because it's for us content creators. We don't like the boring period, but also for the Broncos as a football team, I'm happy they're being boring right now. I'm happy they're not getting into trouble, getting arrested, things like that. I knock on wood. We still have a few more weeks left, but so far so good.
Indeed, some hellos before we get into the conversation tonight. I mean, we got Sam Bam jumping in really early with a super chat, making us feel the love after we've both been gone for a few days. We took Thursday off because of the July 4th. And again, if there was anything burning going on relative to topics, even with Zack on vacation, I still would have been like, all right, let's go stream. But there was nothing. So I'm like, you know what? We're going to hang out at the park with the family. We're going to do 4th of July. It's going to be fine. Everyone else in this community, I'm sure they could appreciate a night off too. And then Sunday, both Zack and I were officially just off the reservation, so to speak. And so out of commission, whatever you want to call it. Here we are. Missed you guys. Sam, thank you, bro. Says, evening, guys. Hope all is well. With training camp coming up, what do you think Knicks' depth chart status is going into camp? Also, do you think Jarrett Stidham and Zach Wilson will make the 53, or is it just one or the other? What do you think, Zach? Go Broncos, by the way, he says.
Thank you, Sam. As always, good to see you again. I think if taking Sean Payton at his word, they're all 1A, 1B, 1C. He called them all orphan dogs. They came from different routes, but all landed in the same destination. He wants to make it fair and give them an even competition. I don't believe in that, Chad. That's why I do think if it was up to me, Zach Wilson would be gone. You make Jarrett Stidham the number 2 and roll with Bo Nix, the rookie. But we'll see how it shakes out. Sean Payton wants to call it down the middle, it seems.
Exactly. The odds makers, for whatever it's worth, I'll cite, I think it was DraftKings. They've got Zach Wilson with better odds to win the starting job than Jarrett Stidham. Now that tells me one of two things. Either they're basing that decision, Zach, purely on 33 starts, career starts versus Stidham's 4 starts, or the fact that, the Broncos can save something like $6 million by cutting Stidham and going with Wilson. It's more like $5 million is what they actually save if they go with Wilson on the roster, that is, and move on from Jarrett Stidham. Or it could just simply be, Zach, that they're not paying attention to kind of what's going on, boots on the ground. Now, my only little addition to that, which one are they going to keep them both? Is it just one of them? It really depends, honestly. If Wilson comes in this camp and plays as good as, or if the margin between them is just razor thin between Wilson and Stidham, I could see the Broncos making, again, this is a cap strap team, making the decision to move on from the more expensive and less experienced quarterback. Even though Stidham's been in the league longer, Zach, he's technically less experienced relative to live bullets. I could see them doing it, but it's a little too early to say for sure.
Well, the DraftKings thing, too, I think plays into recency bias. Zach Wilson was the more recently acquired quarterback between him and Jarrett Stidham. He has the name cachet after flaming out of New York and all the baggage he had there. And Jarrett Stidham's kind of a no man's land in terms of name recognition, Chad. He's kind of a jag. If you asked a casual fan, not many would have named Jarrett Stidham, a lot more would know of Zach Wilson. But I think ultimately it's a little bit of rage bait to get people talking in the offseason. And here we are talking about it.
But at least we're not enraged, eh?
True.
Either way, Sam, bro, seriously, this time of year, opening up the super chat, we jump in the stream and there's already a super chat waiting. That just it's we love you, dude. Thank you, buddy. Really appreciate you. Also waiting in the stream with the super is the Papa Bear. And look, at once again, we're twinners today, Papa Bear, at least relative to your YouTube profile pic. Buckham with a B says good evening to everybody. Broncos country, Chad, Zach, and Deacon Scott. Trust everyone had a safe fourth. Hashtag 12 and 5. Buckham times 3. MHH for life, Bronx for life. Bo knows. Zach, Knicks for 6. Hashtag Bo leave. You know, the hashtag game remains strong. Yeah, I hope everyone did have a great fourth. I know I did. Just spent some time with the family at a little local kind of fair, whatever, and watching the fireworks. How about you, Zach?
Yeah, I mean, where I was, the weather was a little bit of an issue, but I always like celebrating the fourth and our country's independence, Chad. And it's a little reminder too that we're crossing the hump over into football season and training camp, so that makes me happy.
True. Indeed. We got also Taylor Christensen jumping in early. Thank you, buddy. Good to see you. One bold move. Cut Zach Wilson. His new hairstyle won't save him. We'll see. Taylor, dope profile pic, by the way, rocking the new Knicks, Bo Nix jersey, much like Michaela, who's got her new Bo Nix jersey in her profile pic. Welcome back, says the Duchess. To Zach, is anyone else itching for Broncos football? Yeah, baby. Zach, talk about it. I'm going to grab something real quick. I'll be right back.
I'm itching badly. I need some calamine lotion, Michaela. Yeah, I mean, this is what I'm talking about. We're getting closer, but we're still not there. We have about 2.5 weeks until the rookies and veterans report, and then on we go into the Bo Nix era. But getting there, like I said before, just a grind, man, every year.
So finally showed up. A little something. We're going to be doing some raffles here. Once football starts picking up a little bit, we're going to be doing some raffles. All right. We already do the normal raffle right at the beginning of each month, super chat, all that. But this is I hedged a little bit just in case, because you never know the sizes. But I got a large. What do they call the new one? The new orange, the new home orange, something. Sunset orange, I think, is what they're calling it. All right, Bo Nix. All right, that's an L. Just in case I hedged, dad bods XXL. Okay. And then I also got a, I want to say it's a large. Let me double check. Or XL large and 2X. So I probably need to order a couple more sizes, Zach, just because some of the ladies in our community that might, you typically wear jerseys a little bit big, right?
Sure.
But might need to get a couple smaller sizes coming in too.
Well, I think you covered the spectrum for our male demographic, but yeah, I think a female could wear a medium. But regardless, the jerseys look dope, Chad, and that midnight blue and that sunset orange are definitely growing on me.
The blue is still my favorite at the time. I don't remember the rationale why I ended up going with orange. I think it was maybe a slightly more forgiving lead time, getting them here. But I definitely think the blue pops a little bit more than the orange with the based on the new this part, on the sleeve, that it just looks a little bit cleaner on the blue than it does the orange. But yeah, it's so good to see everybody. Appreciate the support on Super Chat. Love you guys. Zach, I want to get your take on this. So again, when we're sitting down saying, hey, what are we going to stream about tonight? No news, etc. There are literally a million different directions that we could go in terms of previewing the season, training camp, the roster, different things. But a lot of them, Zach, either our show or other shows on MHH have already kind of done. But this article that Eric Trickle published at the end of last week, over the weekend, really, 3 bold moves Broncos must make on offense prior to training camp, I thought was worth a conversation. And I want to get your take on this.
Sure.
First thing is, Eric, Zach, is advocating for the Denver Broncos to name the starting quarterback before training camp. Here's what he said real quick, and I want your take. Quote, naming the starting quarterback before training camp would be crucial. A prolonged battle can deprive the eventual starter of valuable snaps, particularly for a rookie like Bo Nix. These snaps are essential for building chemistry with the receivers, gaining confidence, and mastering the offense, which is vital for a well-run offense. Close quote. So he's saying one of these bold moves is, hey, just make the decision and announce it before camp, Zach.
When I saw the title of the podcast, I hope Eric doesn't hate me for saying I didn't check out that particular article, but that's one, move I would make is just naming Bo Nix the starter and not treating it like it's some little league competition where everyone's a winner. This is the NFL. If you have two quarterbacks, you have no quarterback. You took a guy 12 overall. It's Sean Payton's pet project. Don't ruin the chemistry. Let him get the reps with the ones and get the starters down. So I fully agree.
I think he'll forgive you considering too that you've been on vacation. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's a whirlwind. You get back, you feel like you're vibrating because you've just been on the move, depending on where you went on vacation, etc. But I do concur with the rationale. And in fact, this is something that I've been saying from the drop, which is, you drafted not only a 24-year-old quarterback, Zach, in the first round, but the most experienced quarterback to ever enter the NFL draft. His 61 career starts. We all know NCAA records. So let's drop the pretenses, especially, Zach, when all we really heard from the Broncos, whether it was the coaches, the players, etc., was as advertised. Like he's everything. So far, what we've seen on the field during OTAs and mandatory minicamp was exactly what we scouted and why we drafted him. If that's the case, you really do reach the point of diminishing returns by continuing this open. If you're going to go with him, he's your future. You invested a first round pick. If he's really looking that good and ready, Zach, play him and save yourself those in many ways what would be wasted reps, especially if the reps are going to continue to kind of be evenly split amongst the first team. Like, I don't know. I agree with it, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Well, here's my test for that. If I told you that Jarrett Stidham was the starter, would you be surprised? Yeah. If I told you Zach Wilson was the starter, would you be surprised? Hell yeah. If I told you Bo Nix was the starter, would you be surprised? Probably not. That's the way the wind is blowing, and that's the direction the Broncos went as soon as they cut Russell Wilson. It's only a matter of time, Chad, and I agree with you. He's the future. Get him on the field and get him all the reps with the starters.
Okay, let's and by the way, guys, we want your take on these three bold moves, so get them in the chat. But that's the first one. Name the starting quarterback. These are three bold moves Broncos need to make, according to Eric Trickle, before training camp. So far, we concur. Let's jump to number 2, which is sign a center, Zach. Let me read a little snippet here. Quote, this might rattle some who want to turn to Alex Forsyth because of his 1 year with Nix at Oregon, but Forsyth still has to show he can be the starting center. The same goes for Luke Wattenberg. While the Broncos have veteran newcomer Sam Mustipher, his time as a starting center was among the worst in the NFL. Denver needs to add a good veteran with experience, and he goes on to add additional kind of context to that. But what say you?
My question to that is who? Who is the solid veteran presence that you would want? Who's available right now that you would splash and throw some money at?
Let me answer it real quick because here's what he says. All right, there are some veteran centers the Broncos could look at. Finding one with the good experience thing, that might be challenging. He floats here, Zach. Mason Cole, a guy the Steelers released. Nick Gates. Let's see. Connor McGovern, the former Bronco Connor McGovern. So those are three names he mentioned anyway, just for context.
If that was Nick Gates from the Commanders, he was terrible. I mean, are any of those guys, Chad, going to step in and be comparable or better than Lloyd Cushenberry? If the answer is no, and if it's a developmental year with your rookie quarterback, then just develop your center, who was also the quarterback center in college. You brought aboard, to be that veteran presence. You have Wattenberg, who has a year in the system, and so does Forsyth, and you're high on him. So I kind of disagree here. If there was a no doubt slam dunk upgrade on the open market, I'd say go for it, but there simply is not.
You can make an argument, I think, pretty fair one, that Connor McGovern would be an upgrade over what the Broncos have currently. But I'm not convinced either of those other two guys would be. And on top of that, Zach, if you didn't have an offensive line surrounding that center kind of as stable and solid as you did, which, I mean, you got two solid, experienced veteran bookend tackles, Bowles and McGlinchey, And the same kind of goes now for your guards. Like you paid some money to Ben Powers, looked a little sketch at first, but he, after like 2 weeks of the regular season, he got his sea legs beneath him. And then we all know Quinn Miners. I mean, everybody's talking about Quinn Miners. The Broncos have some big decisions to make relative to their future and extensions. And the two guys first in line currently, Zach, are, of course, Patrick Surtain the second and Quinn Miners. But if you didn't have that stability and those guys, I mean, look, if the Broncos were playoff relevant in the season finale, Mike McGlinchey's starting that game, and then you would have had, Zach, all 5 starters on the O-line start every single game last year. So you take Lloyd Cushenberry out of that equation. Yeah, it's concerning. He's the pivot. He's supposed to be that guy. But if you didn't have that, I'd be a little bit more concerned about playing someone like Forsythe or Wattenberg. But that's going to help kind of raise the ships, having that around them.
Well, there's a reason why McGovern was available. I looked it up. He missed like 10 games, the final 10 games of 2023 with a knee. He had a knee injury in 2021 also. So would you really want to bring that aboard, a guy with an injury jacket who may or may not be an upgrade over what Forsythe could develop into? There is one guy that I would throw some money at, is Connor Williams. He's healthy now, coming off an injury, but if you plug him in there, he would be an upgrade. But good luck convincing him to join a rebuilding team in Denver.
There's the word. At the end of the day, you are rebuilding. You're erring on the side of youth. Granted, they're 2 late round picks, but in back-to-back drafts, you invested in a pair of centers, one of whom was kind of a handpicked guy of your current head coach. That's Alex Forsythe. Also now happens to have experience with the quarterback. So because of where the Broncos are at, I'm inclined and okay with its kind of status quo and going forward. Let's see how it looks. Now, you have, something like $7.5 million in salary cap space currently as it stands. If you get through the first couple weeks of camp, you get through that first preseason game, and it's not looking anywhere close to the way you want it to look from one of these guys, then okay, maybe you peel off, you budget some of that Evan Mathis money, you go find a guy who can come in, and hopefully be a Band-Aid. But for now, I agree with you. That's one I'm going, well, I don't know. I think we can hold off on going out and sign and paying a center.
Absolutely correct. Yeah, just let Forsythe roll with the position for a couple weeks. And like you said, if by the second preseason game it's not looking too good, then go out there and explore the veteran market. But at some point, Chad, you have to have a youth movement on offense.
All right, let's look at the third one here on the offensive side. He also has one coming on the defensive side, yet to be published. But the third move the Broncos need to make on offense before training camp, according to Trickle, is sign a veteran tight end or 2. He says, quote, while the Broncos have potential in the tight end room, they don't have any proven assets. Can Greg Dulcich stay healthy? Can Adam Troutman take a step forward, who they did re-sign, bring back? Will Lucas Krull actually develop? It's a room replete with questions, and the Broncos don't have any answers. On top of that, they don't have insurance if Dulcich can't stay healthy or Krull develops. And what about the blocking aspect? And he goes on to also mention, just kind of for what it's worth, guess who's out there? Jimmy Graham, but he's 38 years old, Zach. So anyway, your thoughts of the need to sign a veteran? Because for me, this kind of actually the logic is very similar. It's not exactly the same arithmetic, but the logic to me still basically applies here that it did on center.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, I mean, I would prefer a youth movement. I would prefer Dulcich stay healthy or Krull to develop. But I've also said this a couple weeks on the podcast now. I'd be surprised if Sean Payton didn't take a look-see at the open market for a veteran a la Chris Manhertz and Adam Troutman in 2023. You just simply can't go into the season with Troutman as your starter. So it's similar to center. If by the second or third week of the preseason, Krull doesn't step up, Dulcich is still on the sideline, or, what's his name? Not Andrew Beck, Nate Atkins. If he doesn't step up and develop, then you have to go out there and at least have some sort of veteran presence. So I would tend to agree 55-45 with Trickle on this one.
Man, it's, honestly, the biggest question marks, this might be worth an article, Zach. Going into training camp, we'll keep it on the offensive side of the ball. And this might kind of dictate what some of the moves that you can perhaps predict or preempt. But what are some of the biggest question marks? Doesn't mean it's a question mark, that actually means go sign somebody. But what are some of the big concerns or question marks for you on offense?
Center for sure. What they're going to do in the backfield. Is Javonte going to be the starter? Is Samaje going to make the team? Who steps up in the receiving corps, Chad? What they do with Tim Patrick, Vele in that battle. Does Marvin Mims step up? I mean, you have Sutton probably on your last in his last year in Denver, and you need someone to assume the mantle. Will that be Mims? Will that be Troy Franklin? It's not so much a worry as it is a question mark for me temporarily.
I mean, I devolve back to the number one thing is give your team and the fans quarterback clarity. Just
Yeah.
dispense with that as soon as possible. But beyond the quarterback thing, yeah, what's going to happen at center? That's one of the battles that's going to be fun to watch unfold. The order of supremacy, as it were, at running back. You've got some interesting guys there. How is it going to shake out? And then also wide receiver. If things really are smoothed out with Cortland Sutton before training camp, as Sean Payton kind of made it sound like. There was one report, I want to say it was Jeremy Fowler, in the immediate aftermath of mandatory minicamp saying, hey, don't worry about Sutton. The Broncos will take care of things before or about when training camp is starting. But with that still is kind of lingering, Zach, and Tim Patrick, knowing his recent injury history, if those two things weren't there, I'd be a lot more comfortable and confident in just kind of moving forward. But how convinced are you that Josh Reynolds is a guy that helps raise the ships in that room?
Doesn't it seem like every time we talk about the receiving core, we seem to forget the Broncos signed Josh Reynolds, who's a really, really solid number 3?
Definitely for me, dude.
Yeah, I'm guilty of that too. It's a very under the radar move. And this is a guy who provides insurance more for Tim Patrick than Cortland Sutton. He's, again, a number 3 guy. When he's on, he can be very reliable in the red zone, but it's more so the younger players stepping up. Josh Reynolds, Chad, isn't going to be here for 10 years. Troy Franklin could. Marvin Mims could. They drafted these guys with pretty significant capital, and I need to see at least one of them take a step forward.
For what it's worth, just as a refresher on Josh Reynolds, as kind of a solid number 3 receiver guy, the last few years in Detroit, well, I'll just keep it these last 2 seasons, 22 and 23, where the team, Detroit, had some quarterback consistency. We're looking at 38 grabs in 22, 40 grabs, this past season, a total of about 1,000, little over 1,000 yards receiving and 8 touchdowns. That's solid production for a number 3 receiver. 6'3", a little bit bigger than maybe the average slot that you think of, for slot. But if you get a healthy Cortland Sutton or healthy relationship, that is, with Cortland, you get his mind right, ready to roll, money's not an issue, Tim Patrick stays healthy, then you got a solid top 3. You throw into that Marvin Mims, Zach, who we can fully expect to play a lot more on offense this year. The young rookies, Troy Franklin, Devon Valley, some veteran holdovers, Brandon Johnson, Lil Jordan. There are some horses there, but we got to see how it comes together. And the biggest thing there too, again, devolves back to quarterback. The sooner you get that solved and just announce and say, hey, we're not going to pretend it's our guy. It's the rookie that we drafted in the first round. Let him build up that group. Let those guys rise with him. The sooner you do that, the better.
What I like about Reynolds isn't necessarily what he brings as a wide receiver 3. It's that he was in Detroit since 2021, Chad. And why that's important is that he went through the doldrums of being the worst team in the NFL and kind of clawed back to relevancy and competitiveness. And the Lions were, a quarter away from making the Super Bowl last year. So he knows what it takes to be on a rebuilding team and provide that experience that he was there. It's easy to pass along to the younger players, and it's harder to accept from your coach telling you. But when you have someone next to you like Reynolds who's been there and done that, I think that can benefit the younger guys and Mims and Troy Franklin.
What's your advice to Seth here? Good to see you, Seth, on this jersey. So, man, Quinn Minor's a good choice for a jersey. I hope they extend him soon enough. Zach, I got to tell you, and I'm not trying to jinx anything. I'm touching on wood as I say this, but that's one of those guys where if you're really angling for a Miners jersey, maybe hold off 6 months and wait to see what happens there. Because the worst thing is when you do, like Russ jerseys, right? Nobody's wearing Russ jerseys anymore. And think of the thousands and thousands of Russ jerseys that were purchased around Broncos country in the immediate aftermath of that. And now he's gone and no one's ever going to wear him because it didn't turn out well either. It's one thing to have a jersey of a former Broncos quarterback like Elway, stud, right? World champion. Peyton Manning, even Jake Plummer, even Jay Cutler. He was at least a first-round pick, got a Pro Bowl. Tim Tebow. But what are you going to do with your Russ jerseys? Just be careful. Quinn Miners, I think they will find a way to keep him around, but hold off on that just for a minute.
You also could hold off to be extra safe until Miners retires as a Bronco, because players change teams all the time, even after getting contracts. And I'm probably the wrong person to ask. I believe in buying legacy jerseys, meaning Elway, Atwater, TD, DT, players that can up and leave that'll forever be in Broncos lore. But there's a chance, Seth, that a good chance they're going to extend him, and it's a worthy purchase.
Free Earth Citizen says, hey, Reynolds was the ranked 18th in the NFL in yards per reception last year at 15.2. Yeah, and that is one of the impressive aspects that he brings to the table on his resume. 15.2. And that offense, I mean, guys, we recall when the Broncos went up against it, it was like a buzzsaw. They just were chunk yards after chunk yards. And so it was a good year for Detroit offensively. I'm not reading too much into it, but I'm hoping, Zach, that kind of carries over somewhat to the Broncos. He does have a knack for making the most out of his opportunities.
It's easy to get open and find explosives when you're playing next to Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, Jahmyr Gibbs. That offense is incredible, and you have the perfect distributor in Jared Goff. Fortunately, Bo Nix is a great distributor as well, and I don't expect Reynolds to be 18th this year as well, because his supporting cast isn't as I'd say talented as of now, but he's still going to be an integral factor of the offense. And again, a solid veteran leader in that young receiving core.
Now, here's something interesting. Thank you, Mr. Producer, by the way. And we're at about 26 minutes, guys. We probably will keep tonight pretty tight. So any burning topics, questions, supers, get them in the chat. But this is interesting. And again, thank you, Free Earth Citizen. Scott found this from Bleacher Report, doing a post off-season training program redraft. All right. The Broncos, what would they do at number 12 now, having the hindsight, if they could do it over, of the offseason training program? Well, according to them at Bleacher Report, it's still Bo Nix. I'll just read a little part here. Quote, while Michael Penix Jr. is still on the board in this exercise, which, by the way, he is, the Broncos and Sean Payton were reportedly very interested in Nix, referring to him as, quote, our guy. Payton has also revealed after the draft that he went as far as pretending to be interested in trading up to help ensure the Broncos land the Oregon product. Others may disagree about the coaches and organization's evaluation of the quarterback, but Nix doesn't appear to be giving Denver any buyer's remorse so far. I would concur, Zach, that if he's as advertised, nothing, even Penix dropped, still being available in this, fictitious redraft, I don't think that would change their pick.
I'd like to know if the author that did the redraft what was his initial reaction to the Bo Nix pick? Did he clown it at first? Did he think the Broncos reached? Was he among the masses that thought Sean Payton whiffed? Because I find it ironic that given the opportunity, what does he do? He redraft Bo Nix to the Broncos and kind of makes the case that we made and others have made, that it was the perfect pick for Denver. And I would do the same thing all over again.
I'm not sure. By the way, it's Matt Holder, okay, is the author of this redraft, post offseason training program redraft. I'm not sure what his buzz on his feedback on the Broncos draft haul was, but if he's like most of the national media, yeah, even the fact that Bo Nix has looked as advertised so far, he's probably had to put a little sriracha on that fork before he wrote that article just now.
And a lot more coming too. Stay tuned this fall.
Okay. But good find on that, Scott. Some interesting stuff. And yeah, Drake May fell some. So interesting here. Bears still take Caleb Williams in this dude's redraft. Number 2, Commanders still take Jaden Daniels. Number 3, though, the Patriots take Joe Alt, the left tackle from Notre Dame, and Marvin Harrison still Cardinals. Let's see. Where did May falls to the Giants at 6? They took that receiver, Neighbors, if memory serves, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Drake May, though, fallen to 6. What scuttlebutt for craps and gigs, so to speak, have you heard about Drake May offseason training in New England?
I can't say I followed too closely. I think in the rookie minicamp he was struggling a little bit, but that's with any rookie. It's not an easy situation to walk into. You know, talk about Denver and being irrelevant, but New England post Tom Brady, man, it's a wasteland. They might have the worst supporting cast, at least receiver core in the NFL. And Drake May, there was already questions about him being raw and kind of untested and a lower floor but a higher ceiling. I don't know. I have my doubts, but going left tackle there to block for who? Regardless of what you think of Drake May, New England had to take a quarterback there. So I don't agree with the redraft pick.
Yeah, they were in a pretty tough situation. But he's not exactly a 1-year wonder at North Carolina. So like my fear of drafting 1-year wonders is a thing for me. He had, in fact, his second, his not just the 2022 season, we'll say, for him was actually better than what he produced before he got drafted. I mean, he passed for in 22, Drake May 4,300 yards, 38 touchdowns to 7 picks. This past season, 3,600 yards, 24 touchdowns, 9 picks. Still a very efficient final season at North Carolina, but he was a guy that I understood why people were intrigued, but like if you recall, Zach, going back to the very beginning of the pre-draft cycle, it was like who's going number one? Probably Caleb Williams, but like Drake May was actually getting talked about as a
Yep.
potential guy. And I don't know why. I just never quite saw that in him.
Yeah, and I'm guilty of it. I'll own up to it. I wanted the Broncos to explore a trade up for Drake May, and I'm glad I came to my senses and I had some time to think about it. The Bo Nix pick just makes more sense for what Denver wants to do, what Sean Payton wants to do. I mean, we'll see what Drake May does in New England, but there's more of a chance that he'll flame out there than I think Bo Nix will in Denver, given the circumstances.
Okay, let's see. Let's grab this from Douglas, and then we'll probably dip on out here. He says, "Hey, MHH, I believe the NFL should increase the practice squad to 25, losing more players to concussion protocol plus an extra, what is he saying? Left guard personnel for new kicker. Oh, right. For the new kickoff procedures. Yeah, but I mean, it's already, Zach, like a huge roster, right? Relative to pro sports. I mean, 53 guys just on the regular roster. The changes they made after the pandemic and all that increased in the practice squad significantly. And I think the rules also that they tweaked relative to the practice squad being able to have those elevations in season, that combined with the increase in roster spots, I think it's good enough. But it's an interesting point you bring up, Douglas.
It is, but it's hard enough cutting down from 90 to 53. I mean, increasing it anymore would be more work for the coaching staff. And like Chad said, with the elevations and the new IR rules that you have during the season, I think teams can make it work. But fair point.
All right. One more. Kevin says, if VJ bombs again, who do you like taking? Who do you see taking his job? That's a good question.
That's an easy question.
Go ahead, Zach.
I mean, Dylan said in the next comment there, Jim Leonard, he's a built-in replacement. I still can't believe, Chad, the Broncos lured him to Denver in that role. I mean, you're talking about a guy who had a head coaching future either in college or the NFL, and you're getting him as Christian Parker's replacement as a secondary coach, passing game coordinator. VJ should be and is, in my opinion, on extremely thin ice. If they come out and can't stop the run, can't stop the pass, they allow 70 points again, he will be fired. What did Sean Payton say, Chad, when he got hired? Slow to hire, quick to fire when it came to his coaching staff. That is exhibit A for VJ.
There you have it, guys. Much love and respect. We've missed you. We got one more here jumping in. Oh, my goodness. We got
Super
the Naj.
laughing.
We got the shot of life. Naj Al-Taf, legendary mythical figure. Can't wait to see you in a couple months, bro. He says, hey, brothers, just dropping in to show some support. Thank you, big dog. He says, I think we have to go with Nix from day one. I don't want to see him backing up Jarrett Stidham. Thoughts? Yes, sir. And that's one of the things, I know you're just joining, but the big, bold moves that Eric Trickle is urging the Broncos to make before training camp, number one is just name the starter. He's not even advocating per se, Nix, for what it's worth. He's just saying name your starter so that he gets, and the first team guys, they all get the reps they need and they don't end up being wasted. Like if you end up going with Jarrett Stidham and you were splitting all those reps, etc., it could end up being a waste. But I'm with you, Naj. I think we're both in agreement that, hey, regardless of whether you felt like Nix was a reach for the Broncos at number 12 or not, like Scott still feels like he was drafted too high. Whatever your take on that is, the reality is the Broncos did draft him. and he's a 24-year-old rookie first-round pick quarterback. So you got to get him on the field sooner than later. And if that is the objective of Sean Payton and the Broncos, then why even pretend? Just, again, you go back, Zach, to when Sean Payton was asked early in the offseason, hey, coach, and I want to say it was actually might have been right after the draft, but it might have actually even been right before. I'm trying to remember exactly. Either way, what are the conditions that need to be met in order for you to feel comfortable playing a rookie quarterback? And basically what he said, to paraphrase him, is unless you have a guy, unless you have like a proven starter in the league, like let's pretend for a second, Zach, that Brock Osweiler was a first-round pick. He was a second-round pick, but let's just pretend he was a first-round pick. And, you got Peyton Manning. He's going to wait. In that case, he's sitting. Aaron Rodgers, you're sitting behind Favre. Jordan Love, you're sitting behind Rodgers. Those kind of situations. But nobody on this roster meets that qualification, which is why we all know Sean Payton is going to be playing Bo Nix sooner than later. So just do it now.
Sharing a brain as always, Chad. Common sense wins out here. Bo Nix is the future, and I will give you a more recent example as to why they shouldn't wait. Michael Penix was mentioned before. If the Broncos drafted Bo Nix, but instead of Jarrett Stidham or Zach Wilson, they had a Kirk Cousins in line to start, a veteran, then I can make the case for Bo Nix waiting and letting him ease into the deep end of the pool. But you don't have a Kirk Cousins. You have Jarrett Stidham and Zach Wilson. Nix is ready now, so play him now. Occam's razor.
Naj, love you, big dog. Thank you for the super chat. Hope you're doing well. Shout out to Robot of Doom on Twitch. Great to see you. Burst through the door. I'm here. Great to see you guys. Excellent conversation tonight, guys. So good to be back in the saddle. Few messages for you, then we're going to dip.
Let's see if I still got it. Another tremendous episode of the Mile High Huddle podcast. If you're not doing so, please follow us on Twitter at the MHH Pod. You can follow the main account on Twitter at Mile High Huddle. Chad at Chad and Jensen, myself at Kelberman NFL, and Scott, our producer, at Scout Kennedy. If you guys want some merch like we're rocking each and every single podcast, check out mhhmerch.com and get you some. If you haven't done so yet, please drop us a like at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. You can find us on Instagram at mile_high_huddle. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, make sure you're leaving your Football Priest a 5-star review for a chance to win some merch each and every single month. But if anything, y'all, please subscribe, like, and share this video and every video you see on the MHH channel. It really helps us grow and reach more Broncos fans just like you. That felt good.
Oh, my goodness gracious. The Lady D.
Wow.
Dropping in from the top rope with
Wow.
Boom, top rope, I don't know, the Macho, I don't know wrestling. Macho Man Randy Savage. I know Hulk Hogan.
Leg drop.
I was just telling this kid that mows my lawn, I was like, we're talking about something like Andre the Giant. He's like, huh? I said, I don't know anything about wrestling, but I know who Andre the Giant is. He's like, I got nothing. I'm like, what about Princess Bride? You ever? Nope. I'm like, dude, you need to get out. But either way, Lady D, love you so much. Thank you for the very, very generous super chat. She says, I'm glad to see you both back. Hope your holidays were amazing. I'm for Bo now. I'm thinking Zach Wilson is QB2. See, and this, Zach, is one of the areas where you and I don't share a brain perfectly. Now, you have traditionally followed the New York Jets. Everyone who's OGs of the MHH podcast knows Zach's story and how he came to be on the Broncos beat and how he and I hooked up and all this stuff. So you, I'm sure, have a much more, I'll just say a more invested read on Zach Wilson and where he's at in his career. You probably followed it closer than I have, but money, experience, I wouldn't hate Wilson as QB2. What do you say?
Well, when I was on vacation, I was stuck in my hotel room and I was watching NFL Network, and the 98 Broncos season was being highlighted. And of course, that championship game reared its ugly head again, Chad. So the knife turns further. I mean, you can, regardless, it's your opinion, Deanna. And thank you so much, first and foremost, for your generosity. You were absolutely amazing. Hope your holiday was good and the fam as well. If Sean Payton thinks that Zach Wilson is salvageable, I'm willing to bite the bullet and go with Zach Wilson. It's what Sean Payton wants, and that's why I was down for him drafting whatever rookie quarterback he ultimately wanted. It's his call, and we have to trust him to make the right call.
And the good news is, whether it is Stidham, whether it's Wilson, if they have to turn to either of those guys during the season, we know traditionally it's not a perfect predictor of the future, but the past is the best predictor of the future. That any quarterback that Sean Payton gets his hands on, he typically raises their stock. They do better under his purview. But again, that's no guarantee that if it happens this year, that's going to be, because again, it was only 2 games, but Jarrett Stidham wasn't exactly disabusing me, Zach, in those 2 starts of how I kind of viewed him stock wise as an NFL quarterback. But still, I think a guy as talented as Wilson is, just the raw talent right now, the intangible stuff, much needed repair. His confidence, the Broncos are trying to get him kind of back in the saddle. But from a physical standpoint, arm talent wise, that was something Sean Payton talked about second or third practice with Zach Wilson, is, the arm talent, whatever he said, the ball comes out quick, whatever, strong arm, all that stuff. But what do you got between the ears? I still trust Sean Payton to make the most of that if he has to.
I mean, context is important too, because whether it's week 1, week 5, week 8, Bo Nix will be starting for the Denver Broncos. He's the future. So you have to think in a backup capacity, who would you rather be more comfortable in that role? Jarrett Stidham or Zach Wilson? And in that role is you're one snap away from starting. So if, God forbid, Bo Nix gets hurt, knock wood every podcast, would you feel more comfortable with Jarrett Stidham coming in and winning the game, or Zach Wilson? Until proven otherwise, Chad, using that barometer and that kind of test, it's Jarrett Stidham for me.
All right, guys, we love you. Thank you, Deanna and Naj, jumping in and helping us punctuate this conversation with a pair of very generous super chats. A mile-high salute and a special shout-out to the great super chat superstars. I'll do it in order tonight. Sam Bam, from the top, love you, bro. The Papa Bear, David McElrath, love you, big dog. Taylor Christensen, the Duchess, Michaela Parker, Naj Altaf, love you, dog. And of course, the Lady D, Deanna Hendry. Can't wait to talk to you all again on Thursday night. It's going to be a gas. Plenty of content coming your way, as you know, Tuesday night, Wednesday night. Then Zach and I together back in the saddle again Thursday. Can't wait.
Feels so right, doesn't it? We'll see you Thursday. Have a great start to your week. Take care. And as always, go Broncos.